Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/entitled people. In today's episode, last woman in line claims to be next. Entitled neighbor doesn't want me to make any noise in my own home. Aren't you ashamed for doing what I requested before the rabbi arrived? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Last woman in line claims to be next. This was years ago and I still chuckle at her nerve and my, I like to think, quick response. We were waiting at Chick-fil-A. They were very busy and they had lines that were rather indistinct. Easily 20 people were in front of this woman. She had, without doubt, just walked it and was the last person in line. I was clearly up at the counter and the next person in line for this particular line, but there are other people waiting for their orders, kids with parents, so it wasn't exactly obvious who was next and who was served and waiting for their order. The clerk says, "Who's next?" And the woman at the very back of the store that had just entered, I mean the door wasn't even fully closed yet, chimes "I'm next" and began pushing her way to the clerk with 3 kids in tow. And I mean pushing, shoving, forcing others out of the way, others who could not possibly have arrived after her. I just looked at her and said, "No, I'm next." "You aren't next. You aren't close to being next. You are not anywhere even close to being next. You are so far from being next that you are literally the very last person in line. Literally every single person in the room is in line before you." People were shocked. Frankly, I was a bit shocked too. I didn't raise my voice, but I definitely used my stained glass voice to make the announcement. Everyone stared at her and me. Some were shocked and uncomfortable. Many were smiling and giggling. Ms. Next just froze, sheepishly saying, "Oh. I just got back from Europe and that's how they do things there." I said, "Yeah, they haven't invented lines in Europe yet, huh, dot." The clerk gave me my lemonade for free that day. I got one 3 to 4 days a week. I was never sure if it was out of gratitude for putting her in her place when he wasn't allowed to be rude, out of gratitude for the brief moment of entertainment, or out of fear of me. I thanks him profusely, either way. And several people thanked me, some saying they wish they had the guts to say that. Here ends the lesson for the day. In Europe the clerk would have been rude to her, that you were definitely not the next. In Europe we know how to queue. See the queue to see Queen Elizabeth II's coffin in Britain last year. This just happened to me last week. I am the next in line and was waiting for the clerk to call me forward. Kind of like yours, a woman walks in and heads for the counter. She even looked at me and asks if I was in line. Yes, I say. She proceeds to step up to the counter to order anyway. I said, "Excuse me, but I was next." She said, "I only want to order one thing and I'm in a hurry." Oh, so I am slow because I'm being patient. The clerk took her order, which was more than one thing. It was a meal with several modifications. I was patient and did not grumble, but I was really hot. When she was finished she thanked me. I said no problem, since she is definitely more important than I am and that since she's so much older than me she could have died waiting in line for 5 extra minutes. Needless to say she turned red and walked away. I would have spoken to the manager about it. You should have been waited on first. I can confirm that is not how we do things in Europe. Depends on where you go. British people know how to queue but Spaniards don't. Don't queue in Europe? Britain practically invented the queue. Honestly, if queuing up in lines was an Olympic sport, the UK would win gold every time. I've literally seen queues start for absolutely nothing more than some random person stops somewhat near something that you may need to get in line for and people will start lining up behind them, no questions asked. Entitled neighbor doesn't want me to make any noise in my own home. Apparently a new person moved in below me sometime in December. I, 23F, was gone for most of December, so I had no idea until I got back home from celebrating the holidays. My first night back, I had a friend spending the night, I'll call her Clara. We weren't being too loud, but we were chatting and catching up. She went to her car to grab something, and an old man stopped to talk to her, I'll call him Richard. He asked her if we were throwing a party. She said no. He then said he kept hearing loud banging sounds and that we needed to be more mindful of the people living below us. Okay. Clara got back and told me what happened and asked if I had spoken to Richard before. I told her I hadn't. Soon afterwards, he knocked on the door. So for some context, I'm neurodivergent. A man I don't know knocking repeatedly on my door late at night really freaked me out. I was also wearing pajamas. Because of this, Clara agreed to talk to him for me, which I was thankful for. He went off on her. He said he had been hearing banging sounds for weeks since he's moved in, he keeps hearing weights dropping, I don't lift weights, he hears things drop at midnight and 2 am, he even said that he could hear whenever I flushed the toilet, creepy. Also, I hadn't been home in weeks. At one point during the conversation my cat tried to escape and I had to run over and grab him. This will be important later. Richard has left me alone for the past 2 weeks, though sometimes at night while in bed I would hear banging on the walls or floor. Unfortunately, he came back tonight. I decided I was going to tell him once and for all that I wasn't making noise. It didn't go well. I tried telling him that I'm not the one making noise, he said yes you are. I hear sound then I see you leave in the morning, then I hear sound again when I see you come home. You drive, type of car and color, right? Okay, he's now admitted to watching me. And he knows which car is mine. And I honestly don't know what he is hearing in the morning other than me walking and putting on shoes. I'm not an early riser. I sleep as late as I can then wake up, get dressed, and leave. I'm not doing mornings workouts. He also tried to catch me in a gotcha moment. He said last time I was here your lady friend said you couldn't come to the door because you weren't dressed, but I saw you come grab your cat. Yes sir. She was correct. I was wearing pajamas, not clothing I wanted you to see me in. He kept going on about constant banging, saying he needed to be awake at 4 am for dialysis and that he needed sleep, then he finally left after saying he's not trying to be a jerk. I'm at a loss. I don't know what banging sounds he's talking about other than me walking. And complaining about me flushing the toilet? Seriously. My cat is 18 pounds, not obese, just massive frame, and he runs and jumps around when he gets zoomies, so I wonder if he's hearing him. Regardless, the apartment allows pets, and Thunder is an ESA. I should be allowed to walk around in my own apartment and flush my toilet without worrying I'll piss someone off. I will no longer answer the door if he shows up, but unfortunately, he's admitted to watching me so he knows my schedule. If you don't want to put up with footsteps, animals, and toilet flushing, you should not move into a pet-friendly apartment complex. Complain to the office about his harassment and stalking. Make a FU notebook where you write all of his interactions down. Date time, what he says what you say. When he bangs floors while you are in bed. You may need all of this for office management to take action. You may need to file a police report for the stalking and harassment. Excellent advice. Not only make the notebook when your annoying neighbor comes up to talk to you, grab your phone and tell him I'm going to record this conversation from my safety. We'll see how blustery he can get. Is there a landlord or office you can report the complaint to? I'm sure he will approach you again, and the not trying to be a jerk comment makes me think he will be next time. You might want to cover your butt about his claims, and protect yourself. Old people can get some wild ideas in their heads. I did contact the police non-emergency line, and they have a record now if he tries to call the cops that he's been unreasonable with me in the past. The cop agreed it was insane to complain about my toilet flushing. Also, yes, I have a noisy 18-pound cat. Several neighbors have 50-pound dogs. He's lucky to be below me. He can try explaining to Thunder to be quieter if he wants, but I've tried. We had a neighbor move in right below us do stuff like this. They complained to management twice that we were stomping around late at night and that we played the television really loud late. Both of which we didn't do. We've had multiple neighbors below us and none ever complained. Then he started banging on the ceiling. Many of those times we were already in bed with the TV off and it's like midnight. I was pregnant around this time. I couldn't help that I had to go back and forth to the bathroom multiple times a night, but I didn't think I stomped, lol. Some people need to complain, like they need to breath, they'll die without it. Aren't you ashamed for doing what I requested before the rabbi arrived? When my grandfather died, I was charged with emptying his apartment as best as I can. Throwing away some food, giving diapers and drugs back to the pharmacy to give them away, putting books, clothes and other small items in box to eventually give them to charity. My aunt requested that I keep every box open, so she could check whether there is anything she wants to keep before we gave them away. Fine by me, there is far enough room in the guest room, the office, and the bathroom, which is distinct from the restroom, to do 50 boxes before I get stuck. A week after the death, the rabbi comes to the house to do some ceremony. I knew about it, dressed appropriately, ensured the living room was as good as it can be. A few hours before the rabbi is supposed to arrive, my aunt came back in the apartment for the first time and saw all the open boxes. She started screaming at me, asking me how I was expecting the rabbi and guests to feel. I tried to answer that they are going to be in the living room, maybe the toilets, but they have no reason to go to the room where the boxes are, and I only did what she requested. She asked whether I was not ashamed. No, I answered, and she tried to slap me. It seems that 10 years of karate were not useless, because, as a 30-years-old man with acceptable fitness, I was able to stop the slap from a 65-years-old, 40 kilograms woman. The caterer, who was also here to prepare the food for after the ceremony, did intervene to separate us. Probably useless, I was not going to reciprocate and she could not really do anything. Still, it earned him a really good tip later. I took back my belonging and left. She was still screaming at me in the corridor of the building, wishing me and all my family to die a quick and painful death. As my sister later wisely told me, at least, I won't feel pain for long, that's still nice. I went to the police to tell what happened, main couranti in French, so that there is some record if needed later. And only came back at the very hour the rabbi was arriving. The first thing she told the rabbi was that I went to the police to badmouth her, omitting the reason for it. Once in the apartment, I discovered she hired a huissier. Bailiff seems to be the closest translation. Someone who is trusted by the law to always tell what he saw exactly, without lying, inventing or omitting anything. You can ask them to be a truthful witness of anything. Very expensive when hired on last minute. She had him witness that I didn't make the bed in the guest room. I've friend who could have witnessed I never make my bed for half the price he requested, and that would be the wage of multiple days of work. She also claimed there was an envelope with money in it, that is not here anymore. So he was paid to witness there is no envelope. Personally, I've no idea what envelope it is, I never saw it. I only saw an envelope with around €8 of change, which was still here, but was of no interest to her. And since she didn't had time to pay him before the rabbi started the ceremony, he was also paid for witnessing 1 hour of religious ceremony. To be honest, I'm atheist, so I rarely got to hear rabbi sing, and that's a shame, it's extremely beautiful. No idea what he was singing, but really moving. Her phone rang multiple times during it, She didn't know how to put it in plane mode, so I asked her phone and did it for her. No idea why, honestly, I hadn't thought about it. Not everyone agreed, it seemed, because a friend of her, who does not follow the same tradition, interrupted the rabbi 4 times to explain to him that he was not doing the ceremony properly. After the ceremony, I left. That was the last time I saw her. My father remained, and I heard she complained to the rabbi that I gave the drug and diapers back to the pharmacy, instead of requesting a refund. She wanted me to pay them back for the loss. I only talked to her once since. By accident. I was at my parent place and answered the phone without thinking. When I heard her voice, I declined to answer any of her question, and wished her a good evening, then hanged up. She then texted me that none of my diploma, I've a PhD in computer science, proves that I'm a good person. I agree with her, I know assholes who have more prestigious diplomas than mine. I blocked her number. As you've been shown by your aunt, with or without a PhD, it's eminently possible to be an arsehole. Oh, she's got a PhD too. So this is not the part that differentiates us. If there is ever again some talk about the bad-mouthing again, just say if the truth about you is bad-mouthing, it is you who is bad and not the mouth who talked the truth. So sorry for your loss. Grandpa is watching over you. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.